In the vast animal kingdom of the Pride Lands, one figure stands apart from the natural order in the most extraordinary way. While lions rule through strength, elephants command through wisdom, and hyenas survive through cunning, there exists a small red-billed hornbill who wields influence that defies every law of nature. This bird doesn't just serve the royal family, he operates as their most trusted confidant, their strategic advisor, and their diplomatic representative to the entire animal kingdom. Zazu's position raises questions that go far beyond simple loyalty or competence. No other creature in Disney's Lion King universe enjoys such unprecedented access to royal decision-making. While Rafiki serves as a spiritual guide and Timon and Pumbaa provide companionship, Zazu alone holds the keys to the kingdom's day-to-day operations. He manages royal schedules, coordinates with other animal territories, and speaks with an authority that other creatures instinctively recognize and respect. The first clue to Zazu's mysterious background lies in his effortless command of royal protocol. When presenting Simba to the animal kingdom, Zazu doesn't merely announce. He orchestrates the entire ceremony with the precision of someone born to understand the weight of such moments. His knowledge extends beyond simple tradition into the realm of sophisticated statecraft. He speaks multiple animal dialects, understands complex territorial agreements, and navigates diplomatic relations with a skill that suggests formal training and governance. Consider the remarkable scene where Zazu manages the morning report. This isn't casual conversation. It's a comprehensive briefing that covers territorial boundaries, resource management, population dynamics, and potential threats. The depth of information he processes and the analytical framework he applies reveal intellectual capabilities far beyond what one might expect from a bird whose species typically focuses on basic survival needs. What makes Zazu's position even more intriguing is the natural deference he receives from other animals. When he speaks, creatures listen, not because they fear the lions he represents, but because something in his bearing commands respect. Watch his interactions with the elephant herds, the zebra migrations, or even the more rebellious species like the hyenas. There's an unmistakable recognition in their responses, as though they're acknowledging not just his role but his inherent authority. The physical evidence supports this theory of hidden nobility. Zazu's posture never wavers, even in the most challenging circumstances. When Scar imprisons him, when young Simba ignores his advice, or when facing genuine danger, he maintains the composure of someone accustomed to high-stakes situations. His wings don't flutter nervously like other birds. His head doesn't dart about seeking escape routes. Instead, he exhibits the controlled bearing of someone who has been trained from birth to handle pressure and responsibility. Perhaps most telling is Zazu's relationship with royal tradition itself. He doesn't just follow protocols, he seems to understand their deeper significance. When he insists on proper procedures, it's never arbitrary rule-following. He recognizes that royal ceremonies, diplomatic customs, and hierarchical structures serve purposes beyond mere tradition. They maintain stability, ensure continuity, and preserve the delicate balance that keeps the animal kingdom functioning. The linguistic evidence proves equally compelling. Zazu speaks with a vocabulary and grammatical sophistication that suggests formal education. His references to classical concepts, his understanding of political theory, and his ability to articulate complex strategies all point to an educational background that extends far beyond what any ordinary hornbill would receive. Someone invested considerable time and resources in developing his intellectual capabilities. Even his choice of loyalty raises questions. Why would a bird with such obvious talents and capabilities choose to serve rather than lead? Why would someone with his strategic mind and natural authority dedicate his life to supporting another's reign rather than establishing his own? The most logical explanation suggests that Zazu's service isn't driven by circumstance or opportunity, but by a deeper understanding of duty that comes from royal breeding. This analysis reveals a creature whose every action, word, and decision reflects a background that the surface narrative deliberately conceals. Zazu operates not as a servant who learned to serve royalty, but as royalty who chose to serve. The question that emerges from this evidence isn't whether Zazu possesses the qualities of leadership. Clearly he does. The question is why he's chosen to exercise those qualities in service to another's throne rather than claiming his own. The foundation for understanding Zazu's true origins requires examining not just what he does, but how he does it, and why every aspect of his behavior suggests a heritage that extends far beyond the simple hornbill identity he presents to the world. The behavioral patterns that distinguish nobility from common birth manifest themselves in subtle but unmistakable ways throughout the animal kingdom. True aristocracy reveals itself not through proclamation, but through instinctive responses to situations that require leadership, diplomacy, and strategic thinking. When examined through this lens, Zazu's every interaction provides compelling evidence of a bloodline that has been shaped by generations of royal responsibility. The most striking evidence appears in Zazu's natural command of ceremonial protocols that no ordinary bird would ever encounter, let alone master. During Simba's presentation ceremony, Zazu doesn't simply follow established procedures. He demonstrates an intuitive understanding of their symbolic significance. He positions himself at precisely the correct angle to maximize the visual impact, times his announcements to coincide with optimal acoustic conditions, and coordinates the movements of other animals with the precision of someone who has orchestrated such events countless times before. This mastery extends beyond mere memorization into the realm of creative adaptation. When circumstances change, Zazu adjusts protocols without losing their essential meaning. He understands that royal ceremonies serve multiple purposes. They reinforce social hierarchies, demonstrate continuity of leadership, and provide psychological reassurance to the broader community. Such sophisticated comprehension suggests formal training in the art of governance, not casual observation from the sidelines. The linguistic analysis proves even more revealing. Zazu's speech patterns consistently reflect the elevated register associated with aristocratic education. He employs complex grammatical structures, utilizes precise vocabulary choices, and demonstrates familiarity with concepts that extend far beyond the typical hornbill's sphere of experience. His references to historical precedents, political theory, and diplomatic strategy indicate an educational foundation that requires significant resources and specialized instruction to develop. Consider his interactions with visiting dignitaries from other animal territories. Zazu doesn't simply translate between different species. He demonstrates fluency in the cultural nuances that govern interterritorial relations. He understands which gestures convey respect, which phrases avoid giving offense, and which diplomatic strategies will achieve desired outcomes. This level of cultural sophistication typically requires childhood exposure to international relations, suggesting a background that spans multiple kingdoms and diplomatic traditions. The comparison with other hornbills throughout the Disney universe reveals the extent of Zazu's uniqueness. Standard hornbill behavior focuses on immediate survival needs, finding food, avoiding predators, and maintaining basic social connections within their species. Zazu operates on an entirely different level, concerning himself with long-term strategic planning, complex political relationships, and abstract concepts of justice and governance. This dramatic deviation from species norms points toward exceptional breeding and training that transformed natural intelligence into refined leadership capability. His educational background becomes particularly evident in moments of crisis. When faced with challenges that would overwhelm most creatures, Zazu responds with analytical frameworks that allow him to assess multiple variables simultaneously. He evaluates political implications, considers long-term consequences, and develops strategic responses that address both immediate problems and their underlying causes. Such sophisticated problem-solving abilities require formal instruction in analytical thinking, logical reasoning, and strategic planning. The most compelling evidence emerges from Zazu's relationship with authority itself. He doesn't defer to royal power out of fear or social conditioning. He recognizes it as a legitimate exercise of responsibility that he himself understands intimately. His respect for Mufasa and later Simba stems not from subservience but from professional appreciation of effective leadership. He critiques their decisions when necessary, offers alternative perspectives when appropriate, and supports their authority because he understands its essential function in maintaining social stability. This sophisticated understanding of power dynamics reveals someone who has been raised to wield authority responsibly. Zazu's advice to the royal family consistently reflects the perspective of someone who comprehends the burdens of leadership, the isolation of command, and the weight of decisions that affect entire populations. He offers guidance that only someone with personal experience of royal responsibility could provide. The physical evidence supports these behavioral observations. Zazu's bearing never wavers, regardless of circumstances. He maintains perfect posture during formal ceremonies, keeps his composure during diplomatic crises, and projects confidence even when facing personal danger. This consistent dignity reflects conditioning that begins in early childhood and continues throughout a lifetime of royal responsibility. His natural leadership emerges whenever situations require coordination or organization. Other animals instinctively look to him for guidance during complex group activities, and he assumes control with the ease of someone accustomed to command. He doesn't seek power, it gravitates toward him because other creatures recognize his inherent authority. The revelation that transforms this analysis from speculation into certainty lies in a subtle but crucial detail. Zazu serves by choice, not necessity. His talents, education, and natural abilities would allow him to establish his own territory, build his own following, and exercise independent authority. Instead, he has deliberately chosen to dedicate these considerable capabilities to supporting another's reign. This decision represents the ultimate expression of noble sacrifice, the surrender of personal ambition in service of a greater good. Such sacrifice only makes sense when viewed through the lens of royal breeding. Common creatures serve out of necessity, fear, or limited options. Nobility serves out of duty, honor, and understanding of responsibility that transcends personal interest. Zazu's choice to serve reveals not humble origins, but the highest expression of aristocratic values. The evidence pointing toward Zazu's aristocratic behavior and sophisticated education raises a fundamental question that strikes at the heart of African ornithological history. Where could a hornbill acquire such refined capabilities? The answer lies hidden in the ecological and political structures that existed long before Mufasa's reign, in a civilization that has deliberately remained invisible to ground-dwelling creatures for centuries. Historical analysis of hornbill migration patterns reveals anomalies that standard ornithology cannot explain. While most hornbill species follow predictable seasonal routes driven by food availability and breeding cycles, there exist documented gaps in these patterns. Aerial territories that remain mysteriously uninhabited despite offering ideal conditions for hornbill populations. These vacant zones form a peculiar geometric pattern across the African continent, suggesting not natural barriers but deliberate territorial boundaries maintained by an organized hornbill society. The implications become staggering when viewed through the lens of political geography. These empty spaces correspond precisely to elevated regions that would provide natural fortress advantages. Cliff faces accessible only to flying creatures, mountain peaks invisible from ground level, and aerial pathways that could support a complex transportation network completely hidden from terrestrial observation. The infrastructure for an entire aerial civilization exists in plain sight, camouflaged by the simple fact that ground-dwelling creatures never look up with sufficient attention to recognize organized settlement patterns. Zazu's mysterious arrival in the Pride Lands takes on entirely new significance when considered against this backdrop. No records exist of his childhood, his family connections, or his educational background prior to his service with the royal family. He simply appeared one day, fully formed as a sophisticated political advisor with capabilities that required decades to develop. This sudden materialization suggests not humble origins, but a deliberate departure from an established position elsewhere. The behavioral evidence supports this theory of royal exile or abdication. Zazu demonstrates familiarity with concepts of territorial sovereignty, diplomatic immunity, and hierarchical succession that only make sense within the context of formal governmental structures. His understanding of these principles extends beyond theoretical knowledge into practical application, suggesting personal experience with their implementation. Someone taught him not just what these concepts mean, but how they function in practice. Consider his remarkable ability to navigate between different animal territories without triggering territorial disputes. Zazu moves freely through elephant lands, zebra territories, and even into the borderlands near hyena country, always receiving safe passage despite carrying messages that could be considered sensitive intelligence. This freedom of movement indicates diplomatic status recognized across multiple kingdoms, a privilege typically reserved for official representatives of sovereign powers. The linguistic evidence proves equally compelling. Zazu's command of various animal dialects exceeds mere communication ability. He demonstrates understanding of cultural nuances, traditional greetings, and formal address patterns that vary significantly between different animal societies. Such comprehensive cultural education requires systematic exposure to diverse diplomatic traditions, suggesting a background in international relations that spans multiple kingdoms. His relationship with other flying creatures provides the most revealing clues about his hidden heritage. While Zazu maintains cordial relations with ground-dwelling animals, his interactions with birds reveal subtle hierarchical dynamics that other creatures never witness. Eagles defer to him with barely perceptible gestures. Hawks adjust their flight patterns when he approaches. Even large raptors that could easily overpower him show unmistakable signs of respect that extend beyond simple recognition of his royal connections. These aerial social dynamics suggest that Zazu's authority within the bird community stems from sources independent of his service to the Pride Lands royal family. Flying creatures recognize him through their own social structures, responding to signals and protocols that remain invisible to earthbound observers. The most logical explanation points toward his position within a parallel governmental system that operates entirely within the aerial realm. The symbolic significance of his choice becomes profound when viewed through this lens. A bird choosing to serve land-dwelling royalty represents more than career preference. It constitutes a fundamental rejection of his natural element in favor of terrestrial commitment. This decision carries political implications that extend far beyond personal sacrifice. By dedicating himself to the Pride Lands, Zazu potentially abandoned not just his own throne, but his responsibility to an entire aerial civilization. The timing of his arrival supports this interpretation. Zazu appeared during a period of significant political transition in the Pride Lands, precisely when Mufasa was establishing the governmental structures that would define his reign. This coincidence suggests strategic planning rather than random occurrence. Someone with comprehensive understanding of political systems recognized an opportunity to influence the development of terrestrial governance through careful advisory guidance. His advisory style reflects this hidden agenda. Zazu consistently steers royal decisions toward policies that promote stability, diplomatic cooperation, and peaceful resolution of conflicts. These preferences align with the interests of an aerial civilization that would benefit from reduced ground-level warfare and increased interterritorial cooperation. By fostering peace among land-dwelling kingdoms, he creates conditions that would allow aerial societies to operate without interference from terrestrial conflicts. The revelation that transforms this analysis from intriguing possibility into probable reality lies in Zazu's response to genuine crisis situations. When faced with threats that could destabilize the entire region, he demonstrates access to intelligence networks and resource capabilities that extend far beyond what any individual advisor could maintain. His information comes too quickly, his strategic options appear too sophisticated, and his backup plans prove too comprehensive for a lone operative. The only explanation that accounts for these capabilities points toward ongoing support from an established organization with significant resources and strategic reach. Zazu operates not as an independent advisor, but as a representative of a hidden power that has chosen to influence terrestrial politics through careful guidance rather than direct intervention. This hidden Hornbill kingdom represents the missing piece that explains every anomaly in Zazu's background, behavior, and capabilities. He serves as a bridge between two worlds, using his position in the Pride Lands to advance the interests of both terrestrial and aerial civilizations, while maintaining the fiction that only one of these worlds truly exists. The psychological profile of a royal heir who abandons their birthright to serve another's throne reveals complexities that extend far beyond simple duty or loyalty. Such decisions require extraordinary motivation, typically rooted in philosophical convictions that transcend personal ambition. When applied to Zazu's situation, this analysis uncovers a strategic vision so sophisticated that it redefines our understanding of his role in shaping the Pride Lands' political landscape. The concept of noble sacrifice carries specific meaning within royal traditions across cultures and species. True aristocrats understand that leadership exists not for personal benefit, but as service to broader social needs. The highest expression of this principle involves surrendering one's own claim to power when doing so serves a greater purpose. Zazu's choice to abandon his aerial kingdom in favor of terrestrial service represents this philosophy in its purest form. Consider the strategic implications of his decision from a geopolitical perspective. The Pride Lands occupy a crucial position within the broader African ecosystem, serving as a natural buffer zone between various territorial powers. Instability in this region would create ripple effects throughout the continent, potentially destabilizing trade routes, migration patterns, and diplomatic relationships that have maintained peace for generations. By ensuring effective governance in this critical territory, Zazu protects interests that extend far beyond the borders of any single kingdom. His advisory methodology reveals the sophistication of this long-term strategy. Rather than imposing solutions from external perspectives, Zazu guides royal decision-making toward outcomes that naturally align with broader stability goals. He doesn't dictate policy. He shapes the analytical frameworks that royal leaders use to evaluate their options. This indirect approach ensures that terrestrial rulers maintain genuine autonomy while consistently reaching conclusions that serve interterritorial interests. The psychological burden of this hidden role manifests itself in subtle but observable ways throughout Zazu's behavior. He bears the isolation that comes with possessing knowledge and perspectives that he can never fully share. His conversations with Mufasa and Simba reveal moments of barely contained frustration when their limited understanding prevents them from grasping the full implications of their decisions. Yet he maintains his advisory role with remarkable consistency, never allowing personal feelings to compromise his professional responsibilities. This emotional restraint reflects training that begins in early childhood for those destined to carry such burdens. Royal heirs learn to subordinate personal desires to political necessities, developing psychological resilience that allows them to function effectively despite isolation and misunderstanding. Zazu's consistent composure under pressure demonstrates mastery of these techniques, suggesting extensive preparation for the role he ultimately chose to accept. The evidence of his hidden influence appears throughout major policy decisions during both Mufasa's and Simba's reigns. Territorial agreements that initially seem favorable to the Pride Lands consistently include provisions that create broader stability benefits. Trade relationships develop along patterns that strengthen interterritorial cooperation. Diplomatic initiatives emerge that address regional concerns extending far beyond immediate Pride Lands interests. These outcomes suggest guidance from someone with comprehensive understanding of continental political dynamics. His relationship with information networks provides perhaps the clearest evidence of his true capabilities. Zazu consistently demonstrates access to intelligence that arrives faster and proves more accurate than conventional communication systems could provide. His morning reports include details about events occurring hundreds of miles away, often within hours of their occurrence. Such comprehensive information gathering requires organizational resources that individual advisors simply cannot maintain independently. The timing of his interventions reveals strategic thinking that operates on multiple temporal scales simultaneously. Zazu addresses immediate crises while positioning responses to create favorable conditions for long-term objectives. His advice consistently includes elements that seem unnecessary for solving immediate problems, but prove crucial for preventing future complications. This multi-dimensional planning reflects systematic training in strategic thinking that extends far beyond conventional advisory roles. The personal cost of maintaining his cover identity becomes apparent when examining his social relationships. Zazu functions as a consummate professional in all his interactions, never allowing personal preferences or emotional responses to compromise his effectiveness. Yet this disciplined approach necessarily limits the depth of connection he can develop with others. He remains perpetually isolated by secrets he cannot share and knowledge he cannot fully reveal. The philosophical foundation underlying his sacrifice emerges from concepts of duty that transcend individual kingdoms or species. Zazu operates according to principles that prioritize ecological balance, interterritorial stability, and long-term peace over short-term advantages for any particular group. This perspective requires understanding of complex systems that most creatures never encounter, suggesting education and theoretical frameworks that few institutions could provide. His advisory success stems directly from this hidden royal background. The qualities that make him effective, strategic thinking, diplomatic sophistication, cultural sensitivity, and political acumen, develop naturally within royal environments where such skills determine survival and success. His ability to guide terrestrial rulers effectively depends on his personal understanding of the challenges, pressures, and responsibilities that define royal leadership. The tragedy of his position lies not in the sacrifice itself, but in the recognition it can never receive. History will remember Mufasa and Simba as great kings, but the invisible guidance that shaped their success must remain forever hidden. Zazu accepts this anonymity as the price of effectiveness, understanding that revealing his true role would compromise the very outcomes he seeks to achieve. This analysis reveals a figure whose apparent servitude masks one of the most sophisticated political operations in the animal kingdom's history. Zazu hasn't abandoned his royal heritage. He's employed it in service of objectives that extend far beyond any single throne or territory, sacrificing personal recognition to achieve outcomes that benefit entire civilizations. The revelation of Zazu's hidden royal heritage fundamentally transforms our understanding of power dynamics within the Pride Lands, but it also raises profound questions about the future trajectory of both terrestrial and aerial civilizations. If Zazu indeed represents a hornbill kingdom operating in deliberate secrecy, his current role as advisor may constitute merely the opening phase of a far more ambitious long-term strategy that could reshape the entire African political landscape. The implications for Pride Lands governance prove immediately significant. Every major policy decision during the past 2 generations has been influenced by guidance from someone with comprehensive understanding of continental political dynamics. This means that what appears to be indigenous development of governmental structures actually represents the careful implementation of proven administrative techniques refined through centuries of aerial kingdom experience. The Pride Lands haven't simply evolved effective governance, they've been systematically guided toward it. This realization recontextualizes the remarkable stability and prosperity that distinguished Mufasa's reign and continues under Simba's leadership. Their success stems not merely from personal qualities or fortunate circumstances, but from advisory guidance that drew upon sophisticated political theories and administrative practices developed within hidden aerial civilizations. The question becomes whether this guidance will continue indefinitely, or whether Zazu's mission includes eventual transition toward greater terrestrial autonomy. The succession implications prove equally intriguing. Traditional royal obligations would eventually require Zazu to return to his aerial kingdom to fulfill hereditary responsibilities, train successors, or address evolving political challenges within Hornbill society. His extended absence from those duties suggests either exceptional circumstances that justify prolonged terrestrial engagement, or fundamental changes within aerial political structures that have altered traditional succession requirements. The possibility that Zazu's advisory role represents preparation for something greater emerges from analysis of his educational initiatives with young Simba and continuing guidance strategies. Rather than simply providing solutions to immediate problems, Zazu consistently emphasizes analytical frameworks and decision-making processes that develop independent leadership capabilities. This pedagogical approach suggests preparation for eventual departure, implying that his terrestrial mission includes creating sustainable governance structures that can function effectively without ongoing aerial oversight. The intelligence networks that support Zazu's advisory effectiveness raise questions about the broader Hornbill civilization's current political objectives. The resources required to maintain comprehensive continental monitoring systems indicate organizational capabilities that extend far beyond academic interest in terrestrial affairs. Such extensive intelligence gathering typically serves strategic planning for future political engagement, suggesting that aerial kingdoms may be positioning themselves for more direct involvement in ground-level politics. The timing considerations prove crucial for understanding potential future developments. Zazu's arrival coincided with significant political transitions that required immediate intervention to prevent regional instability. His continued presence suggests that those transitional challenges persist, but eventual resolution would logically lead to reduced need for intensive advisory support. The question becomes whether his departure will coincide with achievement of stable terrestrial governance, or whether new challenges will emerge that require continued aerial involvement. The relationship between Simba and Zazu provides subtle clues about the young king's awareness of his advisor's true background. Simba's increasing reliance on independent decision-making, combined with his growing confidence in handling complex political situations, suggests educational success that may be approaching completion. His occasional moments of insight that seem to exceed his apparent experience level indicate possible private communications that extend beyond formal advisory sessions. The broader implications for interterritorial relations throughout Africa depend heavily on whether Zazu's approach represents isolated intervention or systematic policy across multiple regions. If similar aerial advisors operate within other terrestrial kingdoms, the apparent independence of various animal territories may mask coordinated development guided by overarching strategic objectives. This possibility transforms our understanding of recent historical events from separate local developments into components of continent-wide political evolution. The psychological analysis of Zazu's behavior reveals increasing signs of someone approaching the completion of a long-term assignment. His recent interactions demonstrate subtle shifts toward preparing others to assume responsibilities he has traditionally handled personally. These changes suggest either planned departure or transition toward a different type of role that would allow greater revelation of his true capabilities and background. The technological implications prove equally significant. The communication systems that enable Zazu's rapid access to continental intelligence indicate aerial civilizations possess capabilities that could revolutionize terrestrial societies. The question becomes whether these technologies will eventually be shared more broadly, potentially accelerating political and social development throughout the animal kingdom, or whether they will remain restricted to maintain existing power balances. The ultimate test of Zazu's true heritage may emerge from crisis situations that exceed the normal scope of terrestrial political challenges. Events requiring intervention capabilities that no individual advisor could provide would necessitate revealing support systems that could only originate from organized governmental structures. Such revelations would fundamentally alter the relationship between aerial and terrestrial civilizations. The legacy implications suggest that Zazu's influence will extend far beyond his direct advisory contributions. The governmental structures, diplomatic relationships, and strategic thinking patterns he has established within the Pride Lands will likely influence political development throughout the region for generations. Whether this represents successful completion of his mission or the foundation for even more ambitious future objectives remains an open question. The final consideration revolves around the possibility that Zazu's sacrifice of personal throne rights may ultimately serve to unite aerial and terrestrial kingdoms under new forms of cooperative governance that transcend traditional species boundaries. His unique position as bridge between two worlds may be preparing conditions for political innovations that could reshape civilization itself. The evidence points toward a figure whose apparent humble service masks one of the most significant political experiments in African history, an experiment whose ultimate outcomes may determine whether the future belongs to traditional territorial boundaries or to new forms of interspecies cooperation that could transform the nature of power itself.